The epic opens with a prayer to Apollo and recounts the prophecy he delivered to Peleus, king of Iolcus, foretelling his downfall at the hands of a man with only one sandal. Jason emerges as the figure in question after losing a sandal while crossing a river. Peleus, taking heed of the prophecy, assigns Jason the daunting task of retrieving the golden fleece from Colchis. To aid him on this perilous journey, the ship Argo has been constructed under the guidance of Athena, crafted by the skilled shipwright Argus. As Jason prepares for his quest, a group of renowned heroes gathers to join him. In preparation for the voyage, Jason suggests that the heroes choose a leader, and despite the unanimous nomination of Heracles, he defers the leadership role to Jason, and the others readily agree to his decision. Rejoicing in his election as leader, Jason commands the crew to launch the ship into the water. Sacrifices are made to Apollo, and festivities ensue. At dawn, Tiphys the helmsman rouses the crew, and they set sail, leaving Thessaly's eastern coast behind. Their journey leads them to the island of Lemnos, where the women, led by Queen Hypsipyle, have recently slain all their male kin. Jason, draped in a magnificent cloak gifted by Athena, catches the queen's eye, and he becomes enamored with her, deciding to reside in the palace while his crew is taken in by the other women. Days pass, and the voyage is delayed as Jason becomes entrenched in his new surroundings. However, Heracles, recognizing the urgency of their mission, gathers the Argonauts for a stern reprimand, reminding them of their heroic duty and the importance of retrieving the golden fleece. Chastened by his words, they swiftly prepare to depart. Traveling through the Hellespont, the Argonauts reach an island inhabited by savage earthborn men with 6 arms. These fearsome creatures, known as the Geganese, are hostile and attack the Argonauts by hurling rocks at them. However, Heracles, using his immense strength and skill, destroys them all. Nearby, the Argonauts find the Doliones, a civilized people descended from Poseidon with their young king, Cyzicus, newly married and still in his adolescence like Jason, offering them hospitality. However, tragedy strikes when, due to a misunderstanding in the dark and mist, the Argonauts and Doliones mistakenly perceive each other as enemies and engage in a deadly battle. Jason kills Cyzicus, and in the aftermath, Cyzicus's widow, Clete, ends herself in despair. The shared grief over Cyzicus's death leads to reconciliation, and the two sides come together to hold a magnificent funeral in his honor. Their next landfall is by the river Ceus, where Heracles' young companion Hylas is abducted by a water nymph while he is filling an urn at her spring. Heracles, deeply concerned for his friend, along with his comrade Polyphemus, searches tirelessly for Hylas. In their absence, the rest of the Argonauts set sail again, unaware that they are leaving their companions behind. When the absences are finally noticed, Telamon, one of the Argonauts, accuses Jason of deliberately abandoning Heracles. Just then, the sea divinity Glaucus emerges from the depths, reassuring them that the loss of their 3 crewmen is orchestrated by the gods and beyond their control. With this divine intervention, Glaucus vanishes back into the water, and the Argonauts reluctantly continue their voyage without their 3 comrades, heading to a gulf in the Propontis, home to the Bebrycians and their king, Amycus. The king of the Bebrycians, Amycus, demands a boxing match with the champion of these sea wanderers. Angered by such disrespect, Polydeuces volunteers, and the fight begins. Amycus is a man-mountain, but the young Argonaut is skilled with his fists and eventually lands the lethal blow. The Bebrycians rush on the victor, weapons drawn, but they are intercepted and chased off by his crewmates. Their next stop is on the opposite coast, near the home of Phineus, once a king of the Thynians. Phineus does not ask who these travelers are, as his powers of prophecy are so great that Zeus has punished him for giving away divine secrets, afflicting him with extreme old age, blindness, and daily visits from the Harpies, who steal or defile his food. Jason and the Argonauts are destined to rescue him from the Harpies, and thus he welcomes them as his deliverers. Zetes and Calais, sons of the North Wind, duly chase the Harpies away, and the blind old man gratefully reveals the safest route to Colchis and how best to sail past the clashing rocks. Passing through the clashing rocks, thanks to the advice of Phineus, the pilot's skills of Tiphys, and the aid of Athena, they enter the Black Sea. They arrive at a deserted island, Thynias, where they observe Apollo flying overhead on his way north to visit the Hyperboreans. Their next stop is an outlet of the river Acheron, one of the entries to Hades, where they meet Lycus, king of the Mariandinians, and an enemy to the now-defunct king of the Babricians. They establish friendly relations, and Lycus provides them with guidance and provisions for the next leg of their journey. However, their departure is delayed when the prophet Idmon is killed by a wild boar, and Tiphys dies of illness. After building 2 tombs on the island for their fallen comrades, the Argonauts depart once again. Their next 2 landfalls bring them into contact with some old comrades of Heracles, left behind after his campaign against the Amazons. One is Sthenelus, whose ghost beckons to them from his tomb by the sea, and the others are 3 men stranded at Sinope. The Argonauts pour libations to the ghost of Sthenelus, and the 3 survivors gain places aboard the Argo. Next, they arrive at the river Thermodon, where the Amazons have their harbor, and sensing danger, they leave the next day before the women can assemble for battle. The Amazon influence, however, reaches even to the deserted island of Ares, where the warrior women have built a temple to the god of war. When the Argonauts arrive, it is only defended by birds, which they fight off, and they chance upon 4 survivors of a shipwreck. These 4 survivors are the sons of the exiled Greek hero Phrixus and grandsons of Aeetes, king of Colchis. So Jason welcomes them as god-sent allies in his quest for the Golden Fleece. As the Argonauts approach Colchis, they see the eagle of Zeus flying to and from the Caucasus Mountains, where it feeds on the liver of Prometheus. The eagle glides through the air as large as another ship, disturbing the Argo's sails as it passes overhead. Heracles had joined the Argonauts after completing some of his labors, but it was during his 4th labor that the eagle was killed, and Prometheus was freed by Heracles. Soon after, the heroes enter the Phasis, the main river of Colchis, and furtively anchor in a backwater. While the Argo remains hidden, the goddesses Hera and Athena retire to a private room on Olympus to consider in secret how best to help Jason. Hera thinks the daughter of the Colchian king might prove useful if she could be made to fall in love with Jason, and suggests enlisting the help of Aphrodite. They find the goddess of love indolently combing her hair in her apartment. She has been bickering with her young son Eros, and doubts if the unruly child will fire any arrows at Medea just to please his mother. Hera advises her to avoid quarrels with the boy, and Aphrodite subsequently buys his support with the gift of a fabulous ball, composed of gold and intricately fashioned so as to leave a trail like a falling star when thrown at the sky. Back on the island, Jason advises his comrades that they should try persuasion before attempting to take the Golden Fleece by force. And then he leads the 4 survivors home to the palace. Their unexpected arrival is greeted by Medea with a cry that brings everyone running, including her sister Chalciope and Aeetes, the king. Eros invisibly joins the throng, squats at Jason's feet, and fires off the fateful arrow, departing with a laugh as Medea's heart floods with the sweet pain of love. Aeetes, however, is filled with rage when his grandsons ask him to hand the Golden Fleece to Jason, and accuses them of conspiring with foreigners to steal away his kingdom. Aeetes responds with a mock compromise. Jason can have what he came for if he first plows the plain of Ares with fire-breathing oxen, next sows 4 acres with dragon's teeth, and finally cuts down the crop of armed men before they can cut him down. It's a task that Aeetes, son of the sun, has often performed. Jason accepts the challenge reluctantly and sets off for the ship to inform his crew. Back at the Argo, Jason explains Aeetes' terms to his comrades, who are dismayed by the seemingly impossible challenge, but rally around Jason, determined to help him in any way they can. That night, Medea dreams of herself performing Jason's task and wakes, fearing both her father's wrath and the risk to her reputation if she aids Jason without a valid reason. The safety of her sister's 4 sons hinges on his success, so she wonders if she can persuade Chalciope to ask for her help on their behalf. However, this seems too bold for a young virgin, and she eventually breaks down in tears of despair. Her sister enters, drawn by the noise, and Medea confides that she is worried about her nephews, knowing they are doomed if the stranger fails. Chalciope then asks her to help Jason, and Medea readily agrees, opening her chest of drugs and choosing a potion what would aid Jason. A secret meeting is arranged outside the temple of Hecate, where Medea is the priestess. Jason reminds her that he is at her mercy and promises to make her famous throughout Greece if she helps him. After Medea hands the potion to Jason, he urges her to sail back with him as his future wife, but she does not commit to anything and returns home as if in a dream. Jason returns to the crew, welcomed by all except Idas, who considers his reliance on a woman's help unheroic. The day of the trial arrives, and the people of Colchis gather on the hillsides as spectators while Aeetes rides about in his chariot, reveling in his own magnificence. The Argo sails upstream and moors by the river's edge, and Jason steps forward, secretly fortified by Medea's spells. He manhandles the monstrous oxen and sows the deadly field with dragon's teeth, before pausing briefly for a drink. He then returns to the scene, cheered on by his comrades as an army of men springs from the soil, ready to attack him. Using a trick taught by Medea, he routs them single-handedly, while a dumbfounded Aeetes returns to the palace, wondering how best to cheat Jason of his promised reward. Medea's treason is already known to her father, and she contemplates self-poisoning. Instead, she decides to flee Colchis with her nephews, the sons of Phrixus, who are camped with the Argonauts by the river. Arriving at the camp, Medea warns the others of her father's treachery and offers to help steal the golden fleece from its guardian serpent. She puts the snake to sleep with a spell, allowing Jason to take the fleece back to the Argo and flee, pursued by two Colchian fleets. One fleet sails into the Propontis through the now motionless clashing rocks, while the second fleet, led by Medea's half-brother Absyrtus, follows the same route as the Argo up the river Easter. A distant branch of the river eventually leads the Argonauts into the Sea of Cronus, where Absyrtus finally corners them on the Brygian Islands. Peace talks result in a deal. Jason can keep the fleece, but Medea's fate must be decided by the neighboring kings. Fearing for her life, Medea devises a sinister plan, luring Absyrtus into a trap with promises of rewards, and Jason murders him and dismembers the body to avoid retribution from the Erinyes. The leaderless Colchians are easily outwitted, and rather than return home empty-handed to a wrathful Aes, they disperse and settle around the nearby coast. Indignant at the brutal murder, Zeus condemns the Argonauts to wander homeless for a long time as a gale blows them back north, and they enter the river Eridanus, whose different branches eventually bring them into the Sardinian Sea. Meanwhile, Hera has a friendly chat with the sea nymph Thetis and advises her that her infant son Achilles is destined to marry Medea in the Elysian fields. Hera then sends Thetis on an errand to secure the Argo's passage south, bringing them closer to their destination. The Argonauts safely pass the Sirens, whose song causes buttes to fall overboard. They navigate past the wandering rocks, from which Argo is saved by the Nereids, who pass the ship between them like a ball. The Argonauts then arrive at Drepane off the western coast of Greece, where they encounter the second Colchian fleet. Alcinous, the virtuous king of Drepane, offers to mediate between the two sides and later confides in his virtuous wife, Arete, that he intends to surrender Medea to the Colchians unless she is already married. The queen reveals this to the lovers, who are duly married in a sacred cave on the island, where the bridal bed is draped with the golden fleece. Disappointed, the Colchians follow the example of the first fleet and settle nearby rather than return home. The Argonauts are unable to return home yet because they are driven off course by another gale, this time south towards the Syrtes, an interminable sandbank off Libya. Seeing no means of escape, the Argonauts resign themselves to an inglorious end, parting from each other to die in private. Jason's isolation is interrupted by a visit from three nymphs who give him mysterious instructions for survival. Peleus interprets these as a command to carry the Argo on their shoulders for 12 days across the desert to reach Lake Triton and the Garden of the Hesperides. The Hesperides share good news about Heracles' well-being, but the Argonauts must continue without him. Along the way, they lose two comrades, Mopsus and Canthus, one from snakebite, the other from a wound inflicted by a local shepherd. Triton then reveals a route from the lake to the open sea. The story concludes with the Argonauts visiting the island of Anapha, where they institute rites in honor of Apollo, and then reaching Aegina, not far from Jason's home.